the Bangladesh government did ask for a bilateral meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And if I understand the chief advisors of the government's mind right, the government was eager to have the first bilateral meeting with with our nearest neighbor, India. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize as of today. So only when it became clear that the bilateral summit is not going to take place with India, it is then the Bangladesh government decided on the dates of the travel to China. So it could have been other way. And that was the expected thing, because if you go back into the history, even after the change of government, when Professor Yunus came to power, there was call from Delhi from at the highest level, and Professor Yunus responded to that by taking an invitation to speak at the Southern Conference virtually at that time in Delhi. That was a unique gesture, reciprocal gesture. Thereafter, there had been a meeting with the foreign minister of India in New York. I had been privy to that. I was part of the delegation at that time in New York, UNGA. And then thereafter, your foreign secretary visited us in Dhaka, one of the outcomes of that. So for many of us, it was a logical expectation that it will usher into a summit level meeting. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We thought that it will happen at least on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC meeting. And now we know that the Indian side is not going to respond positively to our request. So from when it became very clear that the first bilateral meeting or bilateral visit will not happen with the Indian side, then the government moved on with China. And the reception in China had been overwhelming, because the chief advisor went to the BAO conference, which is a regional Asian conference. But thereafter, he went to met the head of the governments and head of the other institutions, spoke to the students. He was given an honorary doctorate as expected. So, and thereafter, the multifaceted agreements were done, which ranged from economics, trade, particularly duty-free market access after the Bangladesh comes out of the LDC group, and also moving on to the issues of TISTA, and also bigger cooperation with Belt and Road and other things as well. So one of the new issues which has come up, of course, is how to facilitate the medical tourists from Bangladesh, particularly in view of India's cutback on the visas to go to China, and now we consider direct flights between Kunming and Chittagong in order to facilitate those kind of things. So there is multiple things which had been happening. It is to be seen how they now move forward. The Indian government has given extraordinary and unconditional support to the erstwhile government, the ousted one, and Bangladeshi people hold India responsible in terms of sustaining that autocratic and kleptocratic power which we had been there. That is, there is an essential issue that how the concerned quarter of India looks at its Bangladesh policy and whether they recognize whether anything has gone wrong. I can elaborate on those points, but this is something important, that in order to reboot the relationship, or to rebase the relationship, there is a need for re-articulation. But before that, there needs a bit of a understanding, retrospection as well. What went wrong? And something went wrong, no doubt about it. The current state of affairs will tell us that. But the second part issues is that one is the retrospection. The other part is the current one. As long as the fugitive prime minister from Bangladesh is a variable in the bilateral equation, this will not be easy, if not impossible. And this is an issue which we have always mentioned, that playing host to fleeing prime minister is fine, but if that prime minister lays politics sitting on a safe land is not at all acceptable. That would be considered as an hostile act. So these are the two issues I would like to highlight. One is retrospection, and another is taking out the fugitive prime minister from the bilateral equation. I think what happened is that those who really articulated the Indian approach to Bangladesh, at the end of the day, they looked it through the security lens. They really did not really look at, even they looked at the development projects, connectivity, and everything through the security lens. And when they talked about the cooperation, they essentially meant interdependence in certain way, which will enhance the security. And there are, I think, valid reasons for India to, based on the history, not to feel worried about it. So I think what was important to lay down the red lines, and one of the red lines, of course, that we don't use each other territory for insurgencies and armed attacks and etc. etc. That's one. But what really happened is that in order to sustain that narrative or that particular approach, they went on to support and provide legitimacy to a government which, on three consecutive times, really did fraudulent elections in different orders, which was totally not acceptable by the people at large and not participated by the opposition. And even when they're there, there will be their fraudulent behavior and the whole machinery, administrative machinery, both uniformed and ununiformed, they all came down in favor of the then ruling party in that way. Regrettably, when many of the international partners were circumspect about it, India really went ahead in terms of providing unabashed, unconditional support to the then government. So what has happened in Bangladesh is that all the misdeeds which the former prime minister has done, and she has done tremendously badly with the people, her own people. People hold India responsible because they were providing her the support and everything. Just to give you one example, even after her last election, 2024, and she went to India visit, and she signed the railway connectivity treaty. And people, however logical that may be, economically, connectivity-wise, multimodal system development, people saw it that this was a down payment for the Indian support to an illegitimate government, and immediately people became much more anti-Indian in that way. So I think what went wrong is that instead of respecting the people or really doing relationship with the people to people or to with other stakeholders, whether it's private sector or opposition or civil society, the Indian government decided exclusively to invest on Awami League and its leaders. And as a result, when these people are gone, they have really lost their support base in many ways, and or any other interlocutors, unfortunately, which is very, very sad. What is more worrying is that even after the debacle of 5th August 2024, when our former prime minister fled to Delhi or India, for that matter, I don't know where she is. The issue is, even after that narrative did not change for the Indian. I don't know what to call them, the power brokers inside, and whether they are in the South Bloc or elsewhere. The issue is that they're hanging on to that particular narrative instead of really doing that retrospection and rebooting and re-articulating and taking the relationship forward. That is what is it. And that's where you see how the Indian media puts up various kinds of fake newses and half-truth newses. Of course, there had been attack on the religious minorities and others. Most of them had been politically associated with the ruling party. But overacting on that or overreacting or exaggerating the things and etc. did not help the situation at all. And then all the good gesture, even when the chief advisor a couple of weeks back talked about how to integrate, the seven sisters and do sub-regional cooperation and other things. I didn't see that there was much response from the Indian side. So by now it is becoming clearer that the Indo-Bangla relationship, Indian side, is not anymore interested to develop it with the current government, which is a legitimate government, may not be an elected government, but a very legitimate government, which is moving towards the elections. And the current government, Indian side, possibly is going to wait and see till another new government comes. And in that sense, many of the issues will remain in oblivion for us or unsettled, unfortunately.